Honorable speakers, president, chairpersons, good afternoon. How was your lunch? Thank you. You know, in the African culture, whether the food was not the best, you just say it was good, because that's the culture. You can't condemn what you've been given. Yeah, that's our culture. Thank you. I am aware that, and I can see that some of our leaders are leaving because they booked flights and they have to leave tonight, for example. So some, the whole afternoon, they have to go back to the hotel. So the numbers I can see have gone down slightly, although the attendance is still good. Or I may refer onto this at the end. But you being the final savers of the people in any system, the final anchor, that's from a cultural point of view in Africa. When you're in trouble, you go to the anchor and say, assist me. You are the anchors of the people of Africa. When they are really in deep trouble, they have nowhere to go. There's too much inflation, there's no development, they go to parliament. So because you are the leaders, next time, and we'll talk about next time, avoid flying back on the same day the conference is ending. Please, don't fly back on it, because if we finish around 7 p.m., just because we haven't agreed like on the communique. So please bear with us. There are two sessions which I will try to combine quickly into one, and so that we finish in a good time. Reflections on the effectiveness of Pan-African Parliament. National Parliament's experiences working with PAP. Proposals for improvement. Ideally, if we were not dealing with the speakers, we would have said go into groups. This type of discussion requires some people being in smaller groups. But I think I won't do that. But next time we may have to do it, even for speakers. Sometimes it's more effective, so that Western region, ECOWAS, SADC, you sit in a smaller group and interrogate these issues. But because we have no intentions to do this now, just talk about you as speakers and the PAP. Just a plenary discussion, right away, no presentations. So I'll be asking you straight, you as national parliament, we've put across a very general question. Working with PAP, how are you finding it? If you cannot lead, I'll lead. But if I lead, I then go into the next phase. We have a number of issues that our national parliaments, number one, I'll simply say assist us, including AU Legal Counsel, the image issues of PAP at the moment. From outside, but also it is a fact that your MPs, when they come over here, they tend to relax. The behavior of your MPs here in the national parliaments is very different. And I was telling them the other day, we were talking about it. It's not unusual to see a member of parliament here on the phone. There's no interpretation? Oh, French interpretation. French interpretation, please. Is it okay now? French? Or their interpreters have gone for lunch? I can see some of them settling just now. I can see them coming in to settle. French interpretation, please. Is it okay? Right. I'm saying same MPs behave differently in national parliaments and PAP. So, and I said it's not unusual to say a member of parliament on the phone here at PAP, but they will not do that in the national parliament. They will be in trouble. It's not unusual to see two MPs chatting loudly sometimes during proceedings. So it's a fact that MPs, when they come to PAP, not all, but quite a significant number, they are more relaxed. Even timekeeping is poor. What you call the general decorum. In the national parliament, my bosses, the speaker and the president, they are here. I sometimes have the privilege also to preside over parliament. When you say order, a member will sit down. In the pub, a member may say, no. Then the chair is saying, order, sit down. They will not sit down sometimes. Of course, it points to rules or enforcement which may be weak. So as we review, and I'm happy the legal counsel is here, as we review the rules of PAP to ensure good decorum, we'll also be asking from you, where you have excellent legal skills in your parliament, if you can second someone for not too long a period. It should be good if we had some lawyers from West ECOWAS region, SADC region, Maghreb, IGAD, every region, so that we have a cross, as they say, cross-fertilization of experiences, so that whatever we come up is a product that reflects the spirit of jurisprudence across the regions. That would be very good. A very strong team of lawyers. And then I'll be asking, of course, and I'm doing it tomorrow in our bureau meeting, the legal counsel from the AU also, to second during that period someone, they can come, be in others. Nowadays, because of technology, they can participate from both, whether in Addis, whether here. But we need a very strong team of, we don't want a monopoly of one person saying this is how it is done. No. We want the lawyers themselves to debate and say, no, this is the best way. Then we pick copies, IPU, the way IPU manages these issues, the way SADC, the way ECOWAS. We study all those things and come up with the best for the Continental Parliament. Surely we have issues of behavior and the conduct and the decorum in this chamber. And we are saying, how can you, as national parliaments, how can the legal counsel, for example, assist? Of course, at the end of the day, we have to review the rules, strengthen them so that people really behave. That's one major issue. The other issue is attendance. Some of our delegations don't come at all. And even this time, 22 August to September, some delegations, some countries, never send anyone, and the MPs will call us and say, no money. We thought because the August sitting, we have March, May, August, and October, November. Those are called statutory sittings or meetings for PAP. And we take it that every country, as they pass their national budget, they have to have provision for these statutory meetings. They are at law. So you can't ignore them and not budget for those meetings. In the end, it becomes unconstitutional within your own country. Because if it is statutory, you have signed for it. You signed for PAP to exist, and you are part of the union. So you can't say we are not providing money for Pan-African Parliament. You will not only be acting contrary to what you signed for, but after all, You are, in terms of the union, you are acting unconstitutional. You have to provide for those 4 meetings. It's actually mandatory for your budget, your national budget. So for a country to say we have no money for October session, where did the money go? So we have those cases. In some, even now, in some 2 or out of 5, 3 out of 5 will come because you do not have enough money. And I'm provoking debate. You'll respond, of course, but legally you cannot say there's no money because those 4 are statutory. They are in terms of the law. Those have to be provided for. You can't escape. Otherwise, all right, that's problem of attendance, that they have not come here. Sometimes the MPs will come, but there are no sanctions. They may not even come for duty today, the whole day. Friday, today we are sitting, the MP doesn't come. They may be at the hotel or maybe something else. And at the moment, we do not have rules to enforce against such behavior. Because it's not like in your national parliament where you can elect to say, today I don't go to parliament. But when you come here, you've been flown from your country and paying for accommodation. But you attend on Monday, you attend on Tuesday, you attend on Wednesday morning, in the afternoon, you choose not to attend. Friday, you are not here. So all these issues, again, we see that I think we need to strengthen the parliament in those respects. Then some will come, attend a bit, and go back early. Like we are sitting for 2 weeks, some only come. And there are some countries and some individuals that we know that that one, if he comes on the Monday, first week, second week, Monday, you won't find them. Again, we are saying, can you address your delegations on these issues? I think, again, we are weakening the parliament. Now, some have said this behavior, this poor decorum, this laxity, this indiscipline, if you like, yes, partly can be explained by the working conditions of Pan-African MPs, Parliament MPs. The working conditions, and I want to get into that, which is part 2 already. Status of MPs and the legal counsel is here. We have a problem that we think you should talk to your own foreign ministers and your ambassadors who are based in Addis Ababa, called the PRC. Those, I think, is speakers, even if you can call them, call them. There are these issues. One, the rules or regulations of the whole union. Since 2004, the Pan-African Parliament member is not officially recognized, and I'm provoking the legal counsel in the rules. So when you say financial rules, when you say human resource staff rules, they call them, the member of parliament is not mentioned anywhere. So it's like the parliament is not recognized at all in the AU family. That's one major weakness. A very simple case. In terms of AU staff rules, when a person is on a duty on AU business, which we also do, I travel on PUB business. It's not mentioned what I'm entitled to, whether my allowance, what is the what. And it gets worse on a class of travel. I know countries differ, but most of the countries, when you fly as a member of parliament, they fly business class. When you come to PUB is flying you from Joburg to Khartoum. They will fly you economy. Most of the countries, again, they say our MP cannot travel economy, it's impossible. So they upgrade the ticket. There are countries that will do, like Ghana, for example. I know Egypt, but I say several of you. they will upgrade the ticket. They will say our MP cannot travel economy. But the staff or AU, they will say to you, no, the problem is that in the staff rules, you people are not mentioned and we don't know where you belong, whether economy or business. So in that situation, you go for the West, which is the economy. You cannot go to business because we can't find any grading. If I want to say the status of MPs within the AU family is not written anywhere. Efforts have been made since 2010. There was a PRC meeting held here in South Africa, and I was there. It was agreed that the rules would be reviewed. I think 2 years later, they've since been reviewed, I think, twice. But that particular item, no one wants to address it. That's actually a major contradiction in the whole AU's structure. There are areas where they are shy to come out openly. Who is an MP? In a national setup, the MPs are known as part of parliament through the Speaker's office, clerk. The MPs also, when there are even salary reviews, the MPs are treated and like that. They also in the AU family, no. And there was a case where in 2000, the Sierra Leone elections, the previous one, maybe 2016 or so, PAP sends observers also under AU mission. So the team arrived there, MPs are in economy class, some AU staff arrive in business. And then when you ask why, they said no, it's actually in the report. If you look at the election observer mission, AU election observer mission to Sierra Leone, it's in the report. The report says, staff said no, you see, MPs, you are not graded anywhere. So we had to travel business because it was more than 80 hours. But for you MPs, even if you travel 30 hours, you will remain economy because you are not recognized in the system. But your staff will travel business. So there are all these contradictions that we need to address. And then comes the issue of, okay, medical aid. We used to have medical aid here. Medical insurance, they call it. When you come to South Africa, most of the medical aid insurance in your countries, they are not international. So even if you are on medical aid in your country, medical insurance, others want to call it, it only applies in your country. When you come to PAP for 2-3 weeks, you are exposed if any emergency or anything happens. So since 2004, members would be on medical insurance when they are in South Africa. In fact, at one time we had an international one. Now that has been withdrawn. The member state has to look at that medical aid when you are in South Africa. Another complication, I've referred the class of travel. And the major one is the allowance. In the parliaments, when you sit, in all parliaments, you get what's called a sitting allowance. PAP, no. That is also creating a lot of demotivation. You don't get a sitting allowance. Some countries may do, but most countries, MPs, don't get anything for coming, spend 2 weeks, including myself as president. I came on the 16th of August. Today, 2nd of September. I'm not paid for that period. You only get what you get from your national parliament. But because I'm not in Zimbabwe, I'm absent. I'm losing my sitting allowance in Zimbabwe. And I sit here, I get nothing. Those are some of the contradictions that we want you as speakers also to. The AU is almost close to saying, no, let the member states take care of allowances of MPs, sitting allowance of MPs when they are here. But the protocol says a member of Pan-African Parliament shall be paid allowances, basically for performing duties. Although that allowance has been withdrawn. by the, of course, the bosses, the PRC, endorsed by the Secretary Council. This has created a lot of demotivation among our MPs of Pan-African Parliament. And we thought for the first time we want to bring it to your speakers. If you agree, you pay yourselves the sitting allowance for MPs at PAP. If the national, you say you can handle that, fine. But we know you are saying, no, that is PAP business. But then when you come here, the AU is also, we are not paying you. And the MPs don't find much value in PAP business. I think I've provoked you enough. You can now comment at this stage. I'll ask you to make some comments. What do we do with MP allowances, for example? What do we do with the medical when they are here? They are also out of the country. Yes. Class of travel, I know, is more complicated, but you need to comment on it because some countries upgrade those tickets. Some, of course, maybe because of financial incapacity, they are unable to do that. So we will leave it to you to. I'll ask the first vice president to preside over the question time for this one. Honorable First Vice President, Professor Musuda, can you preside over this session in terms of issues, the responses by our legislative heads?
شكرا سيد الرئيس على إعطائي الفرصة ل
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me this opportunity to talk about the our situation in the Parliament and our relationships with the local national parliaments. We have spoken to the five parliaments and we have various questions. What is the situation of the Pan-African Parliament and what is the ways to develop the parliament? And we all agree that there are many tools to develop the parliament. For example, how to encourage people to come to the parliament. Also, the allowances. There's also the issue of the business class and or economic. Also, the medical aid. It is important to have medical aid for the parliamentarians, and it used to happen before. We also it was an issue that we raised previously. Also, the period of being present in the parliament, because the terms used to be for around 2 years. Some people do not know the parliament because people change and rotate more often, and the presentation is usually for 5 years. But these questions we would like to share with you. We we need to also express our opinions more. And thank you so much. And we have my ultimate gratitude.
أرى الآن الأخ
I see that Mr. the President from Sudan, you can have the microphone, please.
A member of Pan-African Parliament. I'm not a speaker. My speaker is here, and I will take a permission from him if it is possible. شكرا على الفرصة.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. The allowance is important.
Allowances, including medical insurance. How comes medical insurance? You cancel medical insurance. You can cancel sitting allowances, but medical insurance. And the member states, our member states, they are regularly paying the prescription. I mean the yearly contribution. Our member state. We deserve medical insurance because we are contributing to this union. We are contributing to it. We are not beggars. So if you can cancel the sitting allowance, but you cannot cancel medical insurance. That is inhuman. That is inhumane. I thank you.
شكرا جزيلا سيد النائب الموقر. الآن الكلمة.
Thank you. And now the speaker from this side.
Vice President. Thank you, Madam Vice President. I would like to highlight our difficulties when we have to talk about behavior and so on, and the behavior of members of the Pan-African Parliament. As Speaker of the National Parliament, we do not receive reports on the participation, on the behavior of our citizens when they come here. I myself have been a member of this parliament. I'm happy to see that the speaker from Gambia was also a member of this parliament. He used to sit on this side of the room, and from experience, it was always difficult to have a quorum, and Mr. President knows this very well. Sometimes the quorum, the number of members to have a meeting, maybe it would be in the builders shopping center. There will be people there instead of here in Parliament. And so people would come, they would register their names, and then they would disappear. But then, because what I've noticed is that the level of the Senate in Rwanda, we don't know what's happening. So I like to support the president of the Pan-African Parliament, who is asking for your cooperation And also at the level of the Pan-African Parliament, we should have direct reports sent from the Pan-African Parliament to national parliaments in terms of the benefits. And it's really difficult for countries to really talk about participation fees and so on, because this happens in regional parliaments. I think the Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament is here to confirm that. But I know, for example, that for the Parliament, the East African Parliament, they receive per diems so much that at national parliament, the status of the parliamentarian is sometimes lower than in regional parliaments. But the ones who are at the Pan-African Parliament, they are really poorly treated. The third problem that we see here, which the president didn't talk about, is the composition of the delegations. According to the protocol, the national parliaments should send parliamentarians from all the sides of the political spectrum. So all based on representation in your countries. So because when we get here, sometimes people come and speak against their own countries with certain risks that entails to be seen in a bad light and so on. And I really want to say it very honestly that sometimes parliamentarians of the Pan-African Parliament become opposition members against their own countries when they're abroad. And so things that they cannot say in their own parliaments back home, they come and say that here. That's why sometimes we don't really like them, and we don't want to give them the same to facilitate their travel and make it possible for them to be here. That has already is something we've seen, and I say it from experience. But we've had a parliamentarian who went back to his own country and who was almost arrested, and the Pan-African Parliament had to intervene. And I think, therefore, that these are things that we should say to each other very openly and resolve this issue. I thank you very much, Session Chair.
نعطي الكلمة.
And now I would like to give the floor to the speaker from Botswana, the president from Botswana.
Our Vice President, members, some of the issues raised would need more reflection and not off the cuff. Obviously, PAP needs standing orders which can be applied, because I'm sure the MPs who come here and talk over the phone know what would happen to their phones and themselves at home. If anything, I'll send them out. And if it's a repetition, they might lose the sitting allowance for that day. There's the power to do that. You just get Parliament to name them, and they go. If they refuse to go, the Sergeant at Arms and the security people will help take the member out. And at one time, I understood they then threw the member, like they were throwing an orange. And the message went out clearly that if you are a nuisance in Parliament, that's the treatment you may get. The issue of the 4 statutory meetings, I have not heard a report that we failed because of no money. Although the PAP meetings are something which doesn't come that often to me. I know the SADC ones, which we make sure they go, but I've never refused to release MPs to come to PAP, because to me it's a continuation of SADC and the AU, and we want to keep it like that. Concerning the behavior here, Mr. President, that is an issue of the rules, the standing orders, which we need very much. Because the MPs ought to remember that they come here at the expense of the people who are walking the streets in Gaborone, in Botswana. And they can't come here at the expense of the people and then do silly things, it's silly. Go out when they want, come in when they please. When any member has to leave Parliament, they ought to inform the presiding officer where they will go, where they will be absent, and not just disappear. The issue of sitting allowance has never arisen with the MPs who we send here. I understood it that the per diem, that is the allowance they are given, to come and attend PAP, those allowances are supposed to cover their accommodation, their food, and they are sitting here. So we never bothered about that one. But as I say, that one would have to look at carefully whether, in fact, the thinking behind the allowance which was given has truly captured everything. I know when I come to a meeting here myself and Parliament is sitting, I don't get any sitting allowance. The per diem that is given, and the per diem is equal, is everybody from Botswana, you get the same. I've never seen the need to complain about the sitting allowance being paid, certainly not by PAP. We take PAP to be a meeting to which somebody has been sent. We have to look at it again, Mr. President. The other issue, this one is more difficult. PAP not being recognized by the AU. One would have thought PAP did not create itself, it was created. And having been created, it ought to be recognized. How can PAP be recognized by the heads of state of the same people who constituted the AU, and then the AU that doesn't recognize PAP? That's silly. The thinking there to me is crooked, it's awkward. It should not be like that. To fly your officers, business class, and you, the leader, in third class, as it were. That boggles the mind. It can't be allowed to go on like that. What happens? They have to, or you get off the plane first, and then you wait for officers to come because they're the bosses. Uh-uh. Something is wrong there. Totally wrong. Medical aid, I don't know, my colleagues who attend PAP meetings, whether they had any bad experience. My medical aid, which I have, whether I'm in the Isle of Man, in France, I use it. And if there's any problem about some excess, then government tops that one. So on that score also I haven't had any problems. But if MPs come here to come and they have no medical aid at all, I suppose that can only be looked at to see whether the parliament at home where they come from shouldn't do something about it, rather than PAP itself having to be running around. Yeah, I've dealt with the issue of sitting allowance, which has never been raised by our MPs we send here to PAP. And certainly it wouldn't be raised by me because I think I'm well covered to attend here. If I was attending a meeting about the railways, I would not be paying any allowance. Or about some quarrel, I would not be paying any special sitting allowance. I still get the per diem. Thank you, Madam Chair.
شكرا سيد الرئيس على مداخلتكم القيمة وعلى الاقتراحات الواردة والتي سنعود إليها إن شاء الله بعد اكتمال مداخلات الإخوة النواب.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the comments and observations that we will revisit again. Honorable Fakari Tampong from Gambia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Vice President. Let me thank the President for his lucid explanation of some of the challenges faced by the Bureau of PAP, especially as regards members from national parliaments. Two sides, I want to begin with the issue of the relationship between PAP and the African Union. In my submission this late afternoon, I did indicate that African Union Commission must be able to situate parliaments in their affairs. Otherwise, it will be one step forward, two steps backward. They will come out with beautiful programs, but there will be no proper scrutiny or oversight over implementation. It is very disturbing that for the past 18 years, the African Union Commission cannot situate the Pan-African Parliament. Parliamentarians are not featured in their regulations. This has been an outcry for over 10 or more years ago. It's so disturbing that to date, that issue has not been corrected. And amendments were done to their regulations over the period. So for me, it looks like the creation of PAP is just nominal, but we don't definitely want PAP to be effective. With the issue of medical insurance, etc., the conditions they travel, if national parliaments pay for their per diem and air tickets, is it not possible that the AU Commission also comes in to pay sitting allowances and other medical benefits for the parliamentarians? Because at the AU Commission, you have a whole clinic that takes care of their medical needs. So for me, I think if we want to be safe, if we want to ensure we have an effective system, just like ECOWAS, the responsibility over the parliamentarians, that their emoluments must come from the Pan-African Parliament, so that they will be able to discipline parliamentarians who default. I see no reason why the African Union Commission cannot come out with a program that will ensure that the Pan-African Parliament is funded as other regional parliaments in a way that they can take care of their MPs and their operations. So for us as speakers from the various national parliaments, I tend to believe that the problem squarely lies at the African Union Commission. As for parliamentarians who sometimes they don't come to parliament, they stay off 1 or 2 days, or they come in and go out, etc. Some will come 1 week, the next week they are back, etc. When they have all been paid their full per diems. Yes, I agree, they are not motivated, I agree. But that notwithstanding, if they come for duty, they must be able to bear in mind that they represent a people. And those are the people who are funding them to come here. Despite the challenges they may have, they should be able to sacrifice for the people they represent. In that note, I think what one can also think about is to give us regular updates on the situation of MPs, their attendance, non-attendance, behaviors, etc., to national parliaments. I think that would help a long way in trying to mitigate at least some of those problems. I, for one, I have been a member of this parliament for 13 years, from inception to 2017. And the president knows I am quite aware of some of the major challenges we faced during those periods. I had thought that by now, most of those things are things of the past. But it looks like, in fact, PAP has taken 3 more steps backward. It makes your job very daunting and very challenging. I want to appeal, we have representatives from the African Union Commission, that where people hold public office, they must be able to present themselves to be accountable. Parliamentarians themselves are accountable to their people. That's why they go into elections every 4 or 5 years, as the case may be. And sometimes they may even be recalled by certain laws of the land. So public officials must be able to come up and be accountable. I want to appeal that the main reason for the transformation of the OAU to African Union is to ensure integration, unity in Africa. And that cannot be done without the three pillars, the executive, the legislature, and of course the courts. We have created all this. Why can't we fund them? Why should the Pan-African Parliament be the only institution that's suffering all these years, 18 years? If we can't go, let's call it off. You cannot have an institution where national parliaments or governments are using money on them. Even the African Union is using money, and we are not making any headway. So for me, Mr. President, the challenge now is how you people engage the African Union so that the Pan-African Parliament is situated in their equation, properly situated in their equation, so that you can be effective, you can help, you can even coordinate and pass away information to regional and national parliaments, so that we will be able to interact and ensure that we are effective in ensuring that programs are properly executed and implemented. If there are shortfalls, we will be able to take those people to task. I thank you very much, and I wish that we are able to overcome this very serious lapse that's causing a lot of delay in the unification and final integration of the African continent. And we had been warned by our forebears that for us to get that unity, for us to get that liberty, economic prosperity, etc., Africa must be united. We cannot do it in isolation. I thank you.
شكرا سيدي الرئيس.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, for your informative intervention, which denotes your knowledge, vast knowledge of the Parliament and its proceedings. I would like to call now Honorable Roger from Seychelles. You have the floor, Honorable Chair.
Honorable President of the Parliament and Honorable Chairperson of the session, the First Vice President, thank you. I would like to take the opportunity to reflect on some of the matters that the President has put before this Assembly, which relates to the workings of the Pan-African Parliament. I don't know that I have direct answers to all the questions that the President raised, but I certainly have some comments on several of these questions. First of all, I take the question of image. Yes, there is a problem of image, and this problem is related to some of the issues of effectiveness that previous speakers, including the speaker that spoke just before me, raised. I would like to admit that from the feedback from our Parliament, the rating of the Pan-African Parliament that I received has been rather poor, rather low. However, I want to say that there is a new sense of expectation from the delegations that have attended recent sessions, recent meetings of the Parliament. There has been raised a new hope of a more effective and a more performing parliament. And I would like to say that this hope rests in you, Mr. President, and in you, the members of the Bureau. We are counting on you to have a Pan-African Parliament that performs much better than in the past. And I will not refer to some of the instances where I believe this Parliament has been brought into disrepute. This has been mentioned in the course of this session, but it is certainly a point to make that we cannot afford any longer a disregard or poor knowledge of the rules of procedure of Parliament. And this brings me to my second point, which the President raised, and that is conduct. I don't know that we should have an issue of questioning the conduct of delegations, national delegations of Parliament, if the rules of procedure, the points of order, and the code of conduct of this Parliament is clear. These documents should be there, and they should be binding. They should be enforced on the delegations that attend sessions of this Parliament. And I believe that I don't even believe that there needs to be a report from the Parliament of the behavior of delegations. The head of the national delegation has to be entrusted with the proper conduct of the delegation that comes from any member parliament. And if that is done, I believe we will put aside any issue of conduct, attendance, timekeeping, and so on. But the rules must be there, and the rules must be clear, and the member parliaments must have full knowledge of these rules. I will touch on the issue of what allowances or what benefits the member delegation should have. It's difficult to choose between sitting allowances or medical insurance or any other. All of this depends on the budget that the Parliament, the Pan-African Parliament, has at its disposal. I think if the Parliament makes a proper assessment of its budget and decides on what part of it should go to supporting the member delegations, then that issue will be resolved. What is paid will depend on what is available. As far as I'm concerned, the Pan-African Parliament should be ready to meet all the expenses of the member delegations that attend this Parliament. And I do not think this has been the case. I know that we have had to meet travel expenses, other expenses, medical insurance, if that was necessary. As far as I'm concerned, expenses to be incurred by attending to duty in this Parliament should be met by this Parliament. I will put aside the issue of sitting allowances. This is something else. But expenses, what I believe is not right is that the member parliaments should incur, apart from whatever membership they pay to belong to any body to which we are members. I do not believe they should incur the expenses of their members serving in these parliaments. On I know the subject of what the Parliament needs to be doing has been raised. And what I want is to see the Pan-African Parliament reflect the responsibilities that our national parliaments take on. I know that the point has been raised that this parliament does not have the full powers that entitles it to be called a parliament, in other words, legislative power to some extent. But as far as possible, there are other duties of parliaments, which is, for example, oversight. Now, the body that this parliament is related to is, of course, the African Union. And there is, I think, a big challenge of oversight of the African Union that this parliament can take on. And I believe this parliament should take on its own methods of how it would conduct this issue of oversight. I know that from the work of our committees that there is a good deal of work being done by this parliament. But I think what needs to be done is perhaps put it in a framework that will more reflect the standing of a parliament, even though this body does not have the full recognition that it deserves. Finally, I want to, if I take the occasion just to address a couple points on this conference, this meeting, which is not a session of this parliament as far as I interpret it, but it is a meeting of us as speakers representing our parliaments. I would like to see a better organization of this session. One of the things that I have missed, for example, is a list of attendees at this meeting. I vaguely know who is attending, and I know that all speakers were invited, but which speakers are here, which speakers are not, who is being represented by a deputy speaker, and so on. This, I have missed this kind of information. I will also make a comment about the organization of the sessions. I believe that timekeeping can be improved. We have, in evidence, overshot a number of the sessions that we have had, and I believe that in some sessions we have not addressed the theme of the session, but have ranged widely over a number of national and international situations and issues. Now, this is fine. This is when we have the occasion. So I would suggest that in future conferences of speakers, there is time allocated for members, speakers representing their countries, to put their own agenda on the table and to address issues that they believe need to be addressed. I will only give one example. Some instances of challenges of security, national security of countries and so on, has been raised in this chamber. Now, this was not on the agenda. There should have been the opportunity for this to be on the agenda and for the time for it to be allocated so that we can address it properly. And I would also like to see that the Parliament will address a rule of procedure on the length of intervention of speakers, because I believe this will help to better regulate and better order the sessions that we have had. Having said that, Madam Chair, I hope I have not overstrayed my in my remarks, and I thank you very much for the opportunity of having to address them. Thank you.
شكرا السيد الرئيس.
Thank you for your very clear points in to address the ways that may challenge the growth of the parliament. I also thank you for all the contributions and observations, especially when it comes to attendance. Now I will give the word to Mr. Sidi Muhammad, and he is the president of GOE Parliament, and he would give us an idea on the national parliaments, and he might be sharing similar ideas to us and to what has been addressed previously. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice President. Thank you also, Mr. President, for your presentation. I strongly believe that this issue of Pan-African Parliament cannot just be left with the President and the Bureau or the management of the Pan-African Parliament. From our experience in the ECOWAS Parliament, we had the similar situation a couple of years ago. But when a decision was made by the Bureau then to enhance our powers, to include looking at the budgets of the ECOWAS Commission, doing oversight, implementing programs, etc., we first had to look at the law. Like I said in my presentation yesterday, the Parliament has to start with the law. We have to ensure that we help the Pan-African Parliament, especially this particular gathering, a gathering of speakers from the various national assemblies. We must come together to help the Pan-African Parliament. They cannot do it on their own. I believe the President on the Bureau must first put a committee together to see how they can look at the possibility of having the African Union to come up with a supplementary act signed by all heads of states to enhance the powers of Pan-African Parliament. I think that should be the beginning. And to be able to do that, it's going to be the responsibility of every member of the Pan-African Parliament from all the national assemblies, with the leadership provided by the various speakers from the national assemblies, to lobby their various countries to support the Pan-African Parliament to have the powers that we'll be talking about. In the ECOWAS Parliament, we have a very, very strong relationship with the ECOWAS Commission. In fact, just recently, when the heads of states adopted the Vision 2050 for ECOWAS, it was the ECOWAS Parliament that the Commission spoke to popularize it. They funded it. They funded the ECOWAS Parliament to have the localized meetings everywhere to make sure that they talk about the Vision 2050. So that kind of relationship has to exist between the Parliament and the Commission, the AU. In our Supplementary Act, we have the right. There is no way, in fact, because the way it works in the ECOWAS Commission, when they prepare the budget, the Administration and Finance Committee, they prepare the budget. That budget has to come to Parliament first. We vet it, give our opinion before it goes to the Council of Ministers, after which they will send it to the heads of states. That's the procedure. And every bit of that budget is also followed by the Parliament during our oversight. And in the budget, we also have delocalized meetings, about 4 or 5 delocalized meetings a year. We choose any country that the speaker may decide to choose. And we'll always take topics that are of interest to the community. And then we will have people from the commission, technical people from the commission, who will go, if we are talking about agriculture, the commissioner in charge of agriculture will be there with his team to make a presentation. So we have to ensure that there is this relationship between the ECOWAS Parliament, sorry, the Pan-African Parliament and the AU, the Commission. But that can only be done if we first start with the law, the act. We have to have the act or whatever protocol we have from the AU, supported by all the heads of states to give the kind of support that we need for the Pan-African Parliament. And I strongly believe that the president and his bureau are on the right track. Calling a meeting of this nature, I believe if the commitment is there from everybody sitting in this chamber today, if the commitment is there when they go back home, trust me, we should be able, because everybody here have access to their heads of states. Speakers, in some of the countries, they are number 2. Some of them are number 3 in their countries. So every one of them have access to their heads of states. So it's very, very easy for them to lobby for the Pan-African Parliament to have the kind of powers that we need. Without that, trust me, the technocrats like this lawyer sitting here and the president of the commission, they are not going to pay attention to Pan-African. They already have too much work. So it's better we do this so that in future, maybe for the 2023 budget, every aspect of what you want to do as a parliament will be in the budget. So when it is time, they just release the forms. You don't have to beg anybody. As I sit here, we have our own money in our budget. Any program I want to implement, including I just added $600,000 to our budget purely for women, for program. The women will come up with their program. For their program, they want to encourage young people, young women in politics. We give it to them because the money has been allocated. I think that's what we should be done. We should do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President, and well done on your leadership and on your wise leadership in your country. I think personally you are setting a good example that would lead the way forward. You have given us future solutions to current problems. Now I would like others to contribute, but please be short. I know that it is rather interesting and we would like to contribute. Um, However, we still have another session and to have the final session as well. Therefore, I would like to ask everyone to contribute in a minute or two. Now, I have the seventh um, comment, and it's from Zimbabwe, Mr. Ndanda. You may have the microphone. Thank you, Mr. President.
Madam First Vice President, I would like to join those that have spoken before me in making certain observations. On the question of rebranding of PAP, I think that should start with some program of action that will be put across by PAP itself, so that they, as PAP, especially the Bureau, can be visible regionally and continentally. An idea also could be that PAP encourages national parliaments to say at least once in a year, for a week, have an open day for PAP, where the public are invited to to be educated on the role of PAP and its context as far as the AU is concerned, and the National Assembly itself in that particular country. For the IPU, for example, we have the 30th of June as the open day for the IPU celebrations. And these are done and carried out in order to make the general public aware of what the Interparliamentary Union is and how it relates to national parliaments worldwide. On the question of attendance by the members of parliament of PAP as delegates from their national parliaments, I would go along with my brother who has spoken from, I think is Rwanda, to say that where there are such instances, the Speaker of the National Parliament, where these members of Parliament come from, should be advised accordingly, because insofar as Zimbabwe is concerned, we have a budget, a vote for international, continental, and regional bodies to which delegated members of parliament are provided with business class tickets and allowances accordingly. And because the budget has been passed by members themselves, it becomes an obligation on the part of those members who have been selected by the national parliaments to justify their being in PAP by behaving accordingly in terms of their contribution to the activities of PAP. As the Honorable Speaker of Botswana has indicated, that money we budget for is revenue from the taxpayers' money. And therefore, the members are obligated to ensure that they respect the contribution of the taxpayer while they're out on duty here. On that, we can't compromise. In that regard, therefore, we would like to know as speakers how these members of parliament apply themselves to duty in general debate of the House and in committees. Are they performing? As far as Zimbabwe Parliament is concerned, we expect that after each session of PAP parliamentary processes, the delegate must report back to the National Assembly what has transpired. And if there are certain decisions that impact on what the National Parliament of Zimbabwe ought to do, and this is taken up as a responsibility in response to the recommendation that have come out of the report. And this report don't state merely what has happened. I insist as Speaker to say, come up with recommendations, and these recommendations must have timelines so that they are implemented accordingly. Honorable Chair, I had a quick look at the code of conduct, which is there in terms of the protocol establishing PAP. For example, The question of dress code in Parliament and in committees, I see this very weak. It speaks of smart casual, smart casual. In our Parliament, you have to be properly dressed. If you are a man in a suit, a woman in proper attire that carries the dignity of a lady. And you look at these rules here on dress code, they are very weak. And in the end, you may come up, I'm sorry to quote my neighbor here, South Africa, where some people come in overalls in Parliament. That is unacceptable. You wear an overall when you are doing general labor work. But you see, they've allowed it. And also, it says here you cannot also wear attire that speaks to your political party. That should not be allowed. And this dress code, I think, needs to be really thoroughly reviewed. The Honorable PUB President said that you get some of the members using their phones during sessions. Now, at home, our standing orders do not allow that, including in committee meetings. In fact, our standing orders say the behavior of a member of parliament in the General Assembly and in committee must be consistent, the same. Dress code, the same, whether in committee or in the House for general debate. And it says here under Part 4, Article 17, subsection 2, notwithstanding the provisions of Rule 40, subsection 1H, all mobile phones and iPads or any other mobile device meant for parliamentary work shall be placed in vibration or silent mode or turned off while the member is attending the House. That's a good instruction, it's peremptory, but it must have immediately some sanction. If someone uses the phone during debate, what should happen? The rules must be kicked out of the House. So the rules must be very emphatic in terms of sanctions. And then you have the other issue raised by the President under Rule 51, order in the House. Subsection 3, the presiding officer shall order any member whose conduct is grossly disorderly to withdraw immediately from the House or permanent committee for the remainder of that day's sitting. And the usher or the sergeant-at-arms shall act on such orders as he or she may receive from the presiding officer to ensure compliance with this rule. So the conduct there is clear. If I, as presiding officer, say, please, can you take your seat, honorable member, and the member insists on standing, that member must be chucked out of the House. The rules are clear here. So it may also depend on the presiding officer, that the officer must be very, very ruthless when it comes to defiance of the code of conduct. The other issue is one of travel. In Zimbabwe, anyone who holds a diplomatic passport is a member of parliament, they travel second class. They travel second class. So you can't have a diplomat traveling in economy when their status by way of the passport is diplomatic, level. That's a contradiction. And then on Rule 10, it says also the president talked about allowances. I think someone said it's a member from Sudan or something like that, said the allowances were stopped or discontinued. Under Rule 10, privileges and immunities, sub-article 6, it says members shall be paid an allowance to meet expenses in the discharge of their duties in accordance with Article 10 of this protocol. Now, shall is peremptory. Now, I don't know who said the allowances must be stopped without amending the rules. I think it's a violation of our own rules. So what I suggest, Honorable Chair, is that as the PAP president has suggested, it will be imperative that you get a team of lawyers from the 5 regional caucuses and sift through our current rules, and out of that sifting, come up with best practices in order to strengthen the functionality of PAP. I so submit, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your experience, for sharing the Zimbabwean experience, and it shows how you use the resources and the parliamentarian resources, how you control the behavior of the parliamentarians, also to stick to the formal dress code. Now I would like to encourage us for a few minutes, please. We need to stick to the time because I see some of my friends here are fast asleep because we've been here since 8 o'clock. Please stick to the time, be brief, and thank you. And now I will give the microphone to Pamina Along from South Sudan. Thank you.
The President, for raising these issues. This is the forum that you have raised is the right forum because all the speakers are here and those delegations who came here came from their countries. So what you raise here will be reflected also in our assemblies. First of all, I would like to talk on issue of contribution. Whether the countries concerned are contributing according to what is needed. If they contribute, I think that there is no issue of allowances, an issue of tickets, which is there, unless people are not contributing. So I am not sure whether all these countries who have got members here are contributing according to obligation that given to them by the African, by AU. That is one. Concerning the issue of the contact here, my brother here, Right Honorable from Zimbabwe, has got a conduct of business of which we don't have. So it is the conduct of business where people are disciplined. The conduct of business is very clear there, according to what I have heard, which say that the way you dress, the attendance is made. When you don't come and attend and register, you will not get even the sitting allowances in our parliament there. So attendance is connected with sitting allowances. You cannot claim the sitting allowances while you are not attending. So that is a issue of conduct of business. So the conduct of business is the Bible or the Quran of any parliament. Mr. President, I think that you will put this parliament in the right place, because this parliament has been working for so many years, and the issue that you have raised has not been heard by our parliament. Because these members who are here are members of the parliament. They are elected, and then we bring them here while they are members of the parliament. So any issue arising from this parliament, let all the parliaments at home there be reminded the behavior of any MP in Pan-Africa. But it is your work to discipline them, because we don't know how we operate here with you. So I think that you will put this parliament in the right channel. The other issue also I would like to say is the allowances, business class, and then the medical insurance. When people come here, His Excellency, the President, I think that they are under your obligation, under your authority. So it is you to look after them, because if a person becomes sick here, a member of the parliament here cannot go back to the Republic of South Sudan for treatment. So it is you to treat him according to the environment that he is in, because he is serving here as a full member of the parliament. So I think this one is to be looked at. If the payment, the contribution of every country goes to the AU, and then the African Union Commission should remit the money immediately to you. I would like to suggest that you have to prepare your budget according to what you have said here, and submit it to African Union Commission, such that they look at the issues facing your parliament here. This parliament should be also seen like other parliaments, like European Parliament. So if the Africans are really united and work as one, we have to contribute to make this parliament strong. We were talking about the development in Africa, transporting grain in Ukraine, say that we develop on, we make our development and make our agriculture. How can we make it while we are not united? So these are the things that you have to work hard. We will support you. If something comes into our countries, we will support you on this issue. The other thing is that, Madam Chair, is the issue that the members of the parliament who comes here, you have to make a report to the country that they came from, the performance, so that we know exactly are the members sent here performing according to the work that they have been sent, because we may not know whether the member has come here and then go somewhere else and he is not working according to the interests of the Pan-African and the issues of the country. This actually, I would recommend this to be looked at very carefully, so that you give us the performance of each member. His Excellency the President, the way that you have conducted this conference will make this organization very strong. I have seen the way, for the first time, that all the speakers came here. They will report to their countries, and they will also see the issues facing you as the president or with your team as African Parliament. So I appreciate this one with your team. وشكرا جزيلا مدام بشغل الطيب الذي انت عملته. شكرا جزيلا.
شكرا سيد.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. for all the comments you said about the questions that were raised by the President of the Pan-African Parliament on the conduct, on travel, and we take note as well of your suggestion concerning the conduct of the Pan-African Parliament MPs and the efforts to unify the work of the national and the Pan-African Parliament. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I will give the floor to the Honorable Speaker of the Moroccan Parliament, Rajdi Al Alamin. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Sharon Bira, President of the African Parliament, Ms. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends. Well, I'll be short, direct and concise in my intervention. I will respect your decision, Mrs. Chairman, for 3 minutes. I will not go beyond. I start by myself. So I'm going to, first of all, I want to seize this opportunity to thank all of you for inviting me to participate in this conference. I'm very happy. I learned a lot. This is my first participation in this big, great institution. And I get some questions without any previous or behind positions. They are naive questions that I want to put just to share with you my feelings. Can this institution can be one of the most performant institutions of the world or not, comparing to many different institutions to which we all participate? I remember that Zimbabwe, His Excellency is the president of the African group in the IPU, for example. IPU compared to IPU, Arabic parliaments, Islamic parliaments. Morocco also is member of the APUPM, APM, European Council of Parliaments of Europe. And comparing all these institutions, we can put one question, very simple. Can we be performant and better or equal? I say yes, we can. It's a question of human resources. And here I make the link. I'm not going to talk of allowances or insurances or transport, anything. I can say that incentives. You know that in human being resources management, modern incentives make the difference. If you get incentives, you get adhesion. If you don't get incentives, you get resistance. So I'm one of those who encourage incentives, and incentives not only to MPs, to the parliaments, also to the clerks, the administration. We want a strong administration, but neutral. Only the politics can take a position, but the administration should be neutral and also should profit from incentives. Today we are talking of procedures as an institution, of course, procedures, rules, but the question is, what is the mission of this institution? And what are the deliverables? What are the outcomes? Personally, I don't know. Excuse my ignorance, but I don't know. Are we organizing meetings just to talk, or should we deliver something? I believe that the first implementation of this institution, there were many rules, many procedures. Some are respected, some cannot be respected because they are no longer, cannot suit the evolution. For that reason, I share with Mr. President that we should revise the rules, the procedures, and every institutions that cannot adapt itself to political and social evolution is a weak institution. I don't want to belong to a weak institution. I want to belong to a strong institution. And hearing people from yesterday, today, different ideas, innovation, engagement. People want to work, want to deliver, but still we lack that frame that can help us to give the better of us. So, Mr. President, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, you can count on us. We will try to help to provide some contribution, even if they are small, but we want to see our institution one of the biggest institutions of the world for the moment, because we need it, and the world cannot respect us if they don't see that we get a strong influence over the world. And we get that strongest because of these people here and others not coming. Thanks, President. Thanks, Chairman. I hope that I didn't go beyond 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
شكرا لكم.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for this useful speech. The questions that you have put, they were very useful and fruitful, despite the fact, the contrary to what you said, that they would be naive and simple questions. They were very important. Thank you very much for your support to the incentives that go to the staff and to the administration and to the parliament. We do know that the outcome of any human work is connected to incentives. I would like to thank you very, very much for your contribution that you just did now. Thank you again. Now I will give the floor to Honorable Bertold Longo from the Congo Republic. You can have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, for giving me the floor. I would have almost said that it's a straightforward affair, because I agree completely with those who have spoken before me. I just wanted to add that created on the 18th of March 2004. It had its first session in September 2004. And so in 2 weeks' time, PAP will have 18 years of existence. And the beginning of this 11th session, I heard here and there congratulatory messages on the occasion of the constitution of the new bureau and its president. Congratulations to its presidents, because we were saying, yes, there is a man, a square peg in a square hole. So the majority recognizes things we've been talking about around the world, and I think it is a crucial moment to say the role, define the role that we need the Pan-African Parliament to play. The Pan-African Parliament, is it going to continue to be a consultative assembly? And in which case, the motivation that we are talking about, that the colleagues, like the colleague from Morocco has been talking about, is going to continue to see that when we come for the sessions, it's going to be a bit of a joke, because people are going to stand up, take the floor, make interventions, and then people are going to go visit the rest of South Africa, go do shopping, and so on. And so, Mr. President, it falls on you, and all of us are pleading, and we're going to support you on this to try and change a certain number of things. What is the parliament that we want for the African Union? Is it a consultative assembly or a real parliament with a role of legislation and supervision? And for the rest, I think the colleagues have expressed this. We have to know that when a parliamentarian of the Pan African Parliament arrives here, there has to be feedback so that we know who is doing what. The attendance registers, we also mentioned, we've been here for 2 days. We haven't had any attendance register. Just as by way of reminder, in our country, the GRC, if a parliamentarian does not come for a session, well, we have the right to withdraw his mandate, and so here as well, it is we can do something similar. And so, if you do not come 4 times, we prepare a report and we send it to the country of origin, so that his status is withdrawn and handed to someone else. You also spoke about the allowances. What kind of allowances do we want? Should they be identical, the same for all participants, or does each country give these allowances based on their own calculations? So it falls on you under your leadership to give suggestions on the direction to follow. That is what I wanted to say. Because the other colleagues who came before me have already presented most of the things I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and I thank you very much, all of you, for your desire to push the Parliament towards achieving his mandate as a legislative institution. Now I'll give the floor to Honorable Malongo Chisangano from Zambia. You have the floor, Honorable Speaker.
So much, Vice President, for the opportunity, and I would also like to thank the President for the good presentation. I'll just give comments to 1 or 2 issues because I know we have to keep time. For Zambia, this is a Zambia scenario, looking at the allowances and the travel. For all the activities that MPs are expected to participate in away from home, we've got activities under CPA, IPU. All these are budgeted for on yearly basis, such that MPs are given a standard amount of full per diem, whether they go for CPA or IPU or they come for PALP. Then the travel also is standard across the MPs because we follow the conditions of service for them, where they are supposed to travel in business class when they are leaving the country. We expect that PAP has a budget which they follow, and if the budget has got some deficits, I pray that maybe PAP should find a sustainable means of finding money. They can lobby from the national parliaments or indeed from other partners as well, so that their budget can be sustainable and they will be able to accommodate all the activities that are done in this parliament. We hear already that there are conditions, the privileges for the MPs when they come here, that they have to be followed. That is even giving them the sitting allowance. So a sustainable source of income has to be arrived at. Then talking about the medical aid, it is very, very important that this one is seriously looked into, especially that the MPs come here far away from home. and sickness does not choose. So it's very important again to identify how the medical aid will be attended to so that our members of parliament do not suffer in terms of sickness. And then finally, like I promised that I'll be brief, I think like what the other members have brought out, it's very important that we get reports on the conduct and performance of our MPs. As it has earlier on been alluded to, these people, we give them taxpayers' money. They are answerable to the people wherever they are coming from. So we need a report so that we are satisfied that our MPs, when they come here, they are performing their duties. I submit.
شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker and MP, concerning the incentives for the Pan-African Parliament members, and I would like to thank you very much for those fruitful recommendations in order to control the conduct and send back reports on the conduct of the MPs back to the countries. I would like to give to the penultimate honorable from Senegal. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President, Session Chair. The Pan-African Parliament is an important organ for African integration, and already I'd like to congratulate this body and also rejoice at the fact that we thought about creating this structure, and which brings us together and give us the opportunity to get to know each other and to discuss questions of common interest. There are other aspirations linked to the context and the needs that necessitate a transition from a consultative organ to a legislative organ. But the questions raised today really lead me to think that there are important and fundamental stages that we need to go through before we get to that stage. Otherwise, that may lead to some challenging situations. And obviously, chief amongst these things is the appropriation of this body by the African people. In order for the people of the continent and the member countries discover the Pan-African Parliament even more, and also to gauge the impact, the positive impact that this organ can have on their material conditions. A certain number of things have to improve, and that is why I think that the national parliamentarians should be more involved to really constitute bridges between this organ and their countries, because we reiterated that in previous interventions. There is an express need to report back the work of the Pan-African Parliament at the level of national parliaments, so that at least a certain follow-up of the recommendations and the directives should be made at that level. And for that, I believe that the Parliament should strengthen that activity. And if it doesn't have this, it should have an internal monitoring mechanism which enables it to see clearly the implementation of the commitments that the various countries have made in this parliament. There's a certain number of points that have been raised. For example, the issue of ratification. The issue of ratification has to be dealt with by the national parliaments, or at least by the members of the national parliaments who are represented here at PAP, and also to give some feedback at the Pan-African Parliament, because that the kind of interaction should lead, obviously, to the ratification. But also, they need to find the means to make it obligatory to give feedback or to produce reports by the members of the Pan-African Parliament at national parliaments. It goes without saying. But if we do not have a monitoring and evaluation mechanism with regards to this requirement, some will not really be motivated to do the work properly or to participate fully in activities. But also, there should be a kind of sensitization and information work that is done by PAP at the level of the countries, which is based essentially around communication, because we should develop information and communication strategies that make it possible to make PAP visible, but also to get it more involved in certain activities and sectors that touch on the development of the continent. And that is why we need more involvement, for example, in areas of conflict and other difficulties, and to accompany certain countries in resolving their challenges, their transition needs, or conflict resolution, certain level of certain countries, and obviously with the African Union, obviously the Pan-African Parliament should get involved more. But then we need to find mechanisms so that the parliamentarians of the Pan-African Parliament, through missions, through fora and gatherings, get involved in national as well as continental and international affairs. So I'll just end with, well, that is essentially what I wanted to mention. Most of the other concerns have already been said by those who came before me, but obviously I wanted to just add that it is really a major work that we need to do, the transition from a consultative organ to a legislative organ, and we need to understand the complexity of the work that is done, and also what we need to do to have that capacity that poses some challenges, but obviously there are challenges that we can overcome, and we need to continue to work in that regard. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for your submission, which is related essentially to the ratification of Malabo Protocol in order to empower our parliament and transform it into legislative tool with all the powers that pertain to it inside the African Union. I will give now the floor to Honorable the President, His Excellency Dr. Abbas from Sierra Leone. You have the floor, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First of all, let me register my regret that I was not here when this topic came up for discussion. I had to attend to other pressing issues that required my participation. I just want to raise a small point. I encountered some difficulty coming to Johannesburg for this meeting. Before coming here, I was in Canada attending another meeting of a parliamentary nature. And as a result, I did not commence my journey to South Africa from my home country. Instead, I commenced this journey from the UK because it proved to be a bit cumbersome going back to Sierra Leone before starting the journey to South Africa. And in the UK, I tried to get a visa to come to South Africa, and I was informed that I couldn't, since I was the holder of a Sierra Leone passport. I had to go back to Sierra Leone to obtain an entry visa to attend the PAP meeting. And so the South African embassy in the UK could not attend to my requirements. Now, I had therefore to break my journey in Accra because it is the embassy of South Africa in Ghana that also covers Sierra Leone. And so I had to break my journey in Accra to obtain a visa before coming to Johannesburg. I was just wondering, since PAP has its headquarters here and we are therefore required to attend periodic meetings at this level, whether PAP should not be making representations to the host government to at least provide us with visas on entry, visas upon arrival, especially if the officers concerned are the bearers of either diplomatic or service passports. We are certainly making that kind of provision. Only recently, a few months ago, I played host to the region, the African region of the CPA in Freetown, and a huge number of South Africans attended that meeting. We do not have a diplomatic mission here in South Africa. And so what we did was to allow them to travel to Sierra Leone and get a visa upon arrival. And it was as easy as that. And in some cases, in fact, those who were carriers of diplomatic passport, we got a waiver of visa requirements for them. I was wondering whether the same facility or privilege cannot be extended to invitees to PAP meetings as far as visa requirements are concerned. I really need to raise this because of the embarrassment that I incurred trying to come here, and my own case may not be exceptional. It's quite possible that there are other participants here who went through a similar experience. Thank you, Madam Chair. I cannot express myself on the other matters raised by the Right Honorable President of PAP because I was not here to listen to his concerns, but I've been following the debate from the contributions made by the other participants, and I'm very grateful to them. With the time limitation, I think I should stop there. Thank you very much for your attention.
شكرا لكم صاحب المعالي.
Thank you, Honorable President. Thank you very much. We are very grateful for your participation. This is very important meeting, and you still made the effort to come to the meeting even with the visa issues. Thank you very much for that. I would like to give the President of the Parliament, Chief Shimbria, to. This is the last intervention before we finish this topic and start with a new topic. Mr. President, you may have the microphone.
Thank you, Chair of the session, Honorable Speakers, Presidents, Chairpersons of legislatures. I just want to clarify a few issues raised. The per diem, one of you or two of you did mention. What is per diem? Per diem is meant to cater costs with respect to your accommodation where you are going, your food, laundry, and the other possible taxi hire when you're on the ground. It's not a sitting allowance. There is a distinction. After all, the per diems that we are given sometimes, you have to go into a cheap hotel. If you go into a 4-star, 5-star, the per diem is not enough. You have to look for somewhere else. So the per diem, the total amount may not even be enough. I think for South Africa currently is 2 something. So you can't go into Senton, for example. There's no hotel that to accommodate you at that rate. If you use the Johannesburg per diem or any other city, you just have to go lower in terms of hotel. So, yeah, let's not take per diem to be pocket money. Per diem is not pocket money. Anywhere is meant to cover your costs. So the sitting allowance and talking to speakers and the parliamentarians, sitting allowance, whilst per diem can be given to any civil servant going anywhere, sitting allowance in parliament is a long existing tradition for having sat. And such allowances have existed ever since. And I think for you, the interest would be these disparities in the practices. I think that also should be an issue for speakers. That if ECOWAS is paying sitting allowance, EALA is paying as East African Legislative Assembly, why not PAP? Someone to ask this quite basic. That national parliaments pay sitting allowance, regional parliaments, but not the Pan-African Parliament. It's a serious misnomer. In any case, it is in the rules. So sometimes when we misbehave, we are told rules say this now, or the rules say you're not entitled. But when there's a clear express entitlement in terms of the rules, and that benefit is taken away, I think even for you as people who make laws, I think we have a serious issue on that one. But as I speak, there's no allowance. I want to make it clear for any information, this PAP issue, I think will also require speakers to be involved because there's some politics historically at some point within PAP, some points, I can remember when, there's more of a political punishment than people adhering to good practices of parliamentary business. And speakers have taken an interest in how PAP issues are handled. There's a big difference between PAP as an organ. We are an organ of the AU, and you did mention clearly, one of you, that when PAP was established, or when the AU was established, there was no PAP. PAP came in 2004 after the realization for a need for such an organ. So it came later, and some of you made the point clearly that where you have millions of public funds spent on massive projects according to on the continent, and where good practice compels you to have an oversight institution. And in the wisdom of the heads of state, they brought in PAP, launched 2004, when the OAU had been launched in 1963. So it was the realization that we need this institution. And if you read Article 5, organs of the Union, it says the Assembly of the Union, which is the heads of state. It says the Executive Council, number B, which is foreign ministers, PAP, Pan-African Parliament, Court of Justice Commission, the AU Commission, Permanent Representative Committee, which is ambassadors. I can go on. Heads of all these institutions get salaries. And are paid very well. And those who work in there are paid by the union money, not member states. Or member states contribute, but in our case, they will say, don't take from the budget of the union, you should be paid by your national parliament. But everyone else in other organs, they are taken care of by the union budget. So there's clear discrimination of the parliament. These issues need to be addressed. And see, why are we doing it like that? I know you'll be surprised. As president of the PAP and the 4 bureau members, we are not paid anything. No, we are not paid. I don't have a salary I don't have a salary. I have, so usually to get the money from home. If I'm traveling, I have to make sure that I have my own money in my pocket. We have no salary. I have to bring these issues to you, that the head of PAP doesn't have a salary. What we get is $300 a month, which is paid to every organ head like me. So the court, I think, I don't know, it goes probably more than $15,000, $16,000 a month. Head of the court and head of every other organ. They are paid salaries. Every head of organ gets $300, what they call administration allowance. That's what we get ourselves, that $300. But in addition, others get $15,000 and other benefits, whatever, Lord, benefits, medical insurance, education for children, right? So once they get that other massive, big amounts, they then get 300. That's where we are also we also on the 300 per month for the PAP. Whatever, right. So, yeah, there are inconsistencies that are serious. The issue has been raised that PAP should be given its functions, powers. No, it's there. In the rules, and I have to read them. They are very good. Functions of Pan-African Parliament. 1, to facilitate the implementation of the policies, objectives, and programs of the union, and oversee their effective implementation by the various organs of the union. Promote human rights, women and people's rights, consolidate democratic institutions and the democratic culture, good governance, transparency, and the rule of law of all organs of the union, regional economic communities, and member states. Participate in the creating of awareness among the peoples of Africa on the objectives, policies, aims, and programs of the African Union, strengthening of the continental solidarity, cooperation, and development, the promotion of peace, security, and stability on the African continent, the necessity for the pursuit of a common economic recovery strategy, contribute to the harmonization and coordination of the legislative texts of member states, harmonization of the legislative texts of member states in accordance with Article 11.3 of the protocol, promote the coordination of policies, measures, programs, and activities of regional economic communities and their respective legislative bodies drafts, examine and adopt its budget, its rules of procedure, elect its members of the Bureau, employ and manage its staff in conformity with Article 11.2a. Now, this one, there's also a deliberate effort even for the staff of this parliament to be employed elsewhere, and there's a lot of efforts trying to undermine this. Examine, now this is very important, examine and debate the budget of the African Union and make recommendations there on prior disapproval. Since 2004, the budget of the African Union has never been presented to this parliament. It has never happened. So the issues we are saying to our speakers, why? ECOWAS is allowed. ECOWAS, MPs in ECOWAS debate, but when it comes to PAP, the union doesn't, it's like reluctant. What should the parliament say? Because you represent the people, the institutions, the people of this continent. Is that good? Is proper? Exercise legislative and other functions. Sorry, exercise legislative and other functions shall be defined by the Assembly in conformity with Article 11 of the protocol. This is the Malabo Protocol thing now. Then they perform all other functions as are incidental to or likely to enhance the carrying out of their functions. Powers. Now, these are functions, now powers. In discharge of its functions, provided in Rule 4, Parliament shall have powers to oversee the development and implementation of policies and programs of the Union, organize debate on the objectives, policies, aims, programs, and activities of regional economic communities on all matters relating to the proper functioning of organs and the life of the African Union, examine, discuss, or express an opinion or give advice on its own initiative or at the request of any of the organs of the African Union, a regional economic community or legislative body or any member state. Make recommendations and take resolutions on any matters relating to the African Union and its organs, regional economic communities and their respective organs, member states and their organs and institutions. Issue invitations to the representatives of the African Union, organs of the African Union, regional economic communities, and their organs, member states and their organs and institutions, to furnish explanations in plenary on issues affecting or likely to affect life on the African Union. And lastly, exercise all other powers as are incidental or ancillary to the discharge of its functions. Everything is there. There's nothing missing in terms of powers and functions. But when we invite organs, come here, they don't come. 90% of the cases, Lucky is here, legal counsel, and we are very happy that he's here. Some, these are called commissioners of this and that. Their priorities seem not even to recognize Parliament when they schedule. When PAP says, do this or come and address us, to them, they want to go to some conference in Dakar. They want to go to something happening in Brussels where we are busy. No, we don't have those powers like in the national parliament. If we summon you, you refuse, you are in trouble. We can even send you to jail. We subpoena you. We have to have these rules now if the union is going to really have any teeth. So I thought I should comment on that. We have a retreat with the PRC, the ambassadors, I believe September, October, thereabouts. And I take note, and it's very correct. The AU is unfair. They cannot set up an organ. And they say, you national parliaments, can you fund it? Where on earth? It's their baby. Although national parliaments have been very kind, because with respect to statutory meetings, March, May, August, this one, October, November, they've said national parliaments, you should buy air tickets, you should pay the per diems. We should salute member states for understanding to that extent. But there's no other organ that you pay money for yourselves. That's also very important. There's no other organ that you buy tickets for to participate in the meetings of the court, African court or any other. No, it's just PAP. Now they are almost saying, even for the allowance, they want to say, go back. Medical aid, medical insurance, go back. So it's clear that this parliament, I don't know, I can't say it's not wanted because they are the ones who created it. But there are serious contradictions which have also frustrated the operations of this parliament. Anyway, I thought I should comment on those. There are no incentives, of course, for MPs. So the mission of PAP, Morocco, you wanted the mission of PAP. I think I've read everything, the functions and powers of PAP. I think that one is done. And yeah, visa issue, it's very unfortunate. And I can assure you we'll raise this issue with the authorities in South Africa. But the problem is not unique to you. Even MPs sometimes have problems. Yeah, I can only say, let's just go back to the authorities and remind them that they decided to host the PAP, and there's a host country agreement. And at your level, all of you are diplomats. And even the MPs of PAP have diplomatic passports from the AU. So we should expect almost zero inconvenience on that issue. But we do have situations also for MPs sometimes. But we promise that to push for this one. Madam Chair, I think I've tried to touch on those issues that are relevant that I can comment on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the very brief, valuable comments and for all the comments. And lastly, I would like to thank all the people that contributed for all your valuable comments. We have written them down and we will execute them. With regards to the general comments, we have summarize them. Firstly, with regards to the challenges and each challenge, firstly, there's three challenges when it comes to regulations, protocols, and mannerisms. Uh, we we have to review rules to commit and to the disciplines and regulations of the parliament. We have to also work with the AU and the parliament. There are rules and regulations, and in the past there may be some struggles or challenges, but after the new elections and the new president, there is contributions and partnerships and meetings that may affect the process and the future of the parliament positively. We are a new office, but we are working on raising the financial aspects, and the financial aspects in the future will be raised as well. Also, we everyone contributed, and we all agreed that we have to put the parliament in a right financial and financial situation where it is making everyone pleased. On the second point, we have spoken about amendments at the parliament. There has to be further amendments and regulations, not only towards one direction, but we have to amend all the powers, the executive, the administrative, and the legal powers. We have to also work on the laws and administrative to make sure that the parliament is working effectively. The third point is also the evaluation of the parliament. Some people may have seen that it was rather weak and the parliament did not have the good perception by the people. And in the new office, we would like to enhance the work of the parliament and its performance. I would like to conclude with this point that with regards to amend and adopt the all the points that we received from this session, and thank you very much.
La déclaration, c'est Monsieur le Président qui va la faire. والآن أحيل رئاسة الجلسة إلى
Now the chairperson of the president shall be leading the next session, and thank you.
Honorable speakers, presidents, chairpersons, we now need to conclude, come to a close by giving closing remarks. But before we do that, and I want to be very diplomatic, we attempted, it was our intention to have a communique on most of the issues discussed. Yes. We attempted to do a communique, but this communique should have been presented to you as a draft earlier so that you all go through that communique, of course translated, so that each one reads the communique in the language that they understand. Because the session is gone up now, and then to go back to the communique and include everything, it has not been possible. But there is a communique with 7 pages. We don't think we intend to ask you to sign, but it is good to ask a speaker who just read, you test it, and then it will be finalized later, sent to your parliaments, depending on who attended, make some comments, send an email, and say this is good or change here, and then at some stage, then it becomes valid and acceptable. So after that, we close. So request Speaker of the Parliament of the Gambia, the Right Honorable Jata Fabakari, just to read through the document so that you can get a feel of what we are trying, what has been proposed as a draft. And then you may react, but there's no need because you still react when you get back home. Nothing can be published before comments are received from you. So Honorable, Right Honorable Fabakari.
Thank you, Honorable President. Communique and recommendations of the Pan-African Parliament at the 11th Conference of Speakers of National and Regional Parliaments held at the PAP Precincts, Midrand, South Africa, 1st and 2nd September 2022. The Pan-African Parliament held the 11th Conference of Speakers of National and Regional Parliaments on the African Union theme for 2022, Building Resilience in Nutrition on the African Continent, Accelerate the Human Capital, Social and Economic Development.
The conference further sought to give parliamentary dimension to sustaining operations of parliaments in the era of the institutional disruptions occasioned by COVID-19 global pandemic. The conference was held on the sidelines of the first statutory sitting of the permanent committees of the Pan-African Parliament for the year 2022 on the 29th of August 2022 in Midrand, Republic of South Africa. Considering that the establishment of the Pan-African Parliament as the third organ of the African Union is informed by the objective of providing a common platform for the peoples of Africa and to familiarize the peoples of Africa with the objectives and policies aimed at integrating the African continent within the framework of the establishment of the African Union. Recalling the mandate of the Pan-African Parliament under Article 17 of the Constitutive Act of the AU to facilitate the effective implementation of the policies and objectives of the Pan-African Parliament and ultimately of the African Union. Encourage good governance, transparency and accountability in member states, strengthen continental solidarity and build a sense of common destiny among the peoples of Africa, and facilitate cooperation among regional economic communities and their parliamentary fora. On the issue of post-COVID-19 recovery strategies, the Pan-African Parliament, speakers of regional and national parliaments of AU member states make the following recommendations for post-COVID-19 recovery strategies and resolve as follows. 1. To work towards experience sharing and collaboration in best parliamentary practices, including evolving ideas on building formidable resilience into our internal processes to respond to the next catastrophe or global disruption. 2. To support government through legislation in strengthening public health care delivery by improving the capacity of health workers through advanced training in specialized and regular refresher courses, investment in health infrastructure and logistics, and other scientific research. 3. That the African Center for Disease Control should strengthen its collaboration with universities to undertake more health and scientific research. 4. To support the African Union through the African CDC to establish a Continental Vaccines and Medicine Center for the development of vaccines and other medicines, including the establishment of national laboratories for early detection of diseases. And 5, to support member states' plans in local resource mobilization in finance of national healthcare initiatives as a framework of support for the effective implementation of Africa's CDC continental health programs. On the issue of building resilience in nutrition on the African continent, the speakers of regional and national parliaments of AU member states make the following recommendations for building resilience in nutrition on the African continent and resolve that the Pan-African Parliament and national parliaments will work towards the following. 1. That member states should honor the Maputo Declaration on Agriculture and Food Security and increase their annual budgetary allocation to the agricultural sector by at least 10%. 2. That member states should ensure the provision of appropriate incentives in the agricultural sector, such as insurance for farmers and building the capacity of farmers through A, subsidization of agricultural inputs and implements, B, development and supply of high-yielding, early maturing and drought-resistant varieties of seeds and seedlings, C, training in food processing and preservation, and D, introduction of modern methods of farming, such as mechanization and irrigation, and rain harvesting to mitigate the negative effects
of climate change. 3, that the African Union should support member states in massive industrialization to add value to agricultural produce as part of the AFCFTA. 4, that the African Union should enhance financial support to existing established and dedicated financial institutions for agricultural financing. 5, that the member states should increase investment in research and development in agricultural sector, including increased use of science and technology in agriculture. And 6, that member states should establish mechanisms for the promotion of peace and security as a precursor to sustainable development. On the issue of ACDEG, that African Center for Democracy, Elections and Good Governance, the speakers of regional and national parliaments of AU member states make the following recommendations on ACDEG and resolve that the Pan-African Parliament and national parliaments will work towards the following. 1, request the Pan-African Parliament and the national parliaments to working closely with the Department of Political Affairs of the AUC in promoting ACDEG in 3 main areas. A, popularization in order to achieve universal ratification. B, support state parties domesticate and implement ACDEG. And C, support state parties report regularly on the implementation of ACDEG. 2, call upon the remaining 18 member states to accelerate the ratification process to achieve the required universal ratification of the African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance. 3, request member states to improve citizen participation in governance, particularly women and youth. 4, request member states to promote and encourage the holding of regular, free, and fair elections within member states in order to ensure value of democracy through both presidential and parliamentary elections. 5, ensure peace and security by silencing the gun and solving numerous conflicts, particularly the DRC, Somalia, and northern Mozambique. On the issue of Agenda 2063, the speakers of regional and national parliaments of AU member states make the following recommendations on Agenda 2063 and resolve that the Pan-African Parliament and national parliaments will work towards the following. 1, enactment of national laws and enabling legislations for effective implementation and realization of Agenda 2063. 2, member states to integrate the Agenda 2063 in their respective national development plans. 3, invite the African Union Commission to establish formal framework and communication channel to regularly communicate the AU instruments requiring signatures and ratification in order to reduce over-reliance of the national parliaments on the executive. And 4, request the Pan-African Parliament to improve its capacity to effectively oversight the implementation of Agenda 2063. On the issue of AFCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area, the speakers of regional and national parliaments of AU member states make the following recommendations on AFCFTA and resolve that the Pan-African Parliament and national parliaments will work towards the following. 1, request countries yet to ratify the Charter on Free Movement of People and Goods to do so and ensure constant dialogue with nations to ensure free movement of people and goods. 2, request countries to urgently remove trade tariffs and other barriers to facilitate the free movement of goods in the continent. 3, ensure the building and development of human capital with appropriate skills to support the implementation of the Charter. And 4, support the development of transportation networks, particularly air transport, to shorten travel time on the continent. On the issue of recommendations on status of ratification of OAU, AU treaties, and the ratification of the PAP Malabo Protocol, the speakers of regional and national parliaments of the African Union member states make the following recommendations on the status of ratification. 1. Request member states to establish national sectorial committee subject to own local realities, composed of representatives from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or External Affairs as a focal point, representatives from national parliaments, including the active involvement of Secretary Generals, and representatives from the Ministry of Justice, and representatives from other sectorial ministries. 2. Ensure that the Pan-African Parliament institutionalize a platform for integration between the Pan-African Parliament, for interaction between the Pan-African Parliament and the national and regional parliaments. 3. Request that resources and technical assistance is provided to member states facing challenges on signature and ratification of OAU-AU treaties, including PAP protocol. And 4, organize advocacy and working visits to targeted member states and support the exchange of experience among stakeholders on the initiatives being undertaken to speed up signature and ratification of OAU-AU treaties. Now on the effectiveness of the Pan-African Parliament. 1. The Pan-African Parliament should engage the African Union to ensure that parliamentary programs are effectively implemented and its oversight mandate well recognized. 2. That the Pan-African Parliament should engage the African Union to request an additional act to reinforce PAP mandate and budget. 3. Ensure that the Pan-African members receive sitting allowances and a medical insurance to support them to effectively perform their duties. 4. The Pan-African Parliament should send report on the MP's participation, attendance, and behavior to national parliaments and ensure accountability in accordance with the rules of procedure and the code of conduct. 5. For future speakers' conference, the Pan-African Parliament should provide a section in the program for national parliaments to present their reports on issues affecting their countries and specifically their respective parliaments. And 6, the Pan-African Parliament should delocalize its sittings in member states. I thank you.
Thank you, Right Honorable Jata Fabakari. As I mentioned, the intention is not to interrogate this document because it is only in English now, and it would disadvantage others who are not very conversant with the English language. We will translate, send it to you, or you comment until it's cleaned, and then you all finally adopt it, then we move forward. Unless there is a contrary view. I think let's leave it like that. It is done. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Honorable Monsieur le Président.
Honorable President. The speaker's microphone is not on, sir.
It's far. It's on. The
Should I go
microphone is
in
on.
English?
No, they are saying the
Okay.
mic. The mic is
Ah,
on.
ok.
Yeah, this mic is
Maintenant,
on.
c'est bon?
It's fine now. It's fine. It's gone off again. He's switched off the microphone again.
Contraire par rapport
His microphone is going on and off, on and off. Kindly use a different microphone, sir. It should be the receiver chair.
pour la énième fois répéter ou
He's audible now. It's fine now. Thank you very much. Sorry about this technical hitch. Let me repeat again. I think it's extremely important what I was about to say. Honorable President, is not the intention of the legal advisor to come up with a recommendation that is different from the recommendation that emanate from your meeting. Nonetheless, Mr. President, I wanted to express all the pleasure and honor to have been invited to take part in this August Assembly. This has been indeed an extraordinary experience for us, for the legal advisor to take part in the meeting of the Pan-African Parliamentary Continental organ together with the national representatives of parliaments. This has been a singular occasion indeed, and we've had the opportunity to participate and more so to intervene on a very important matter which relates to the ratification and the implementation of various treaties from the African Union. Honorable President, honorable speakers of national parliaments, I am more so delighted that one of the recommendations that has been formulated here has been also highlighted in your recommendations, which you've so rightly adopted, and to institutionalize this platform of interaction between ourselves and you. I think without starting a drafting a document, I wanted to address the paragraph that deals with this recommendation so that we add an objective to this interaction, because it needs to have an objective. It is a text in English.
and assess on an annual basis the progress on ratification and implementation of AU treaties. Voilà, le texte, on le communiquera.
There we are. So the text will be sent to the Secretariat of the Parliament, and also to indicate, Mr. President, as a legal advisor of the Commission, I would like to commit myself to put at your disposal a report that will be more detailed than the presentation I put before you earlier, so that it helps you strengthen this exercise, so that you're in a position to assess annually the progress achieved in terms of ratification of our treaties. And therefore, you'll be able to make the requisite recommendations. I believe, Honorable President and Honorable Speakers of the National Parliament, that this is indeed going to help us build on the issue of ratification and implementation of treaties. So this is my modest contribution. It was not intended to delay the conclusion of your business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me thank you. Better standing.
Mr. President.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. President.
You can go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. I think there must be some timeline for the translation of the communique. If it comes after 6 months, then it will be stale. So it has to be given a timeline. I would want to believe not more than 2 weeks at most, so that when it is agreed to, is publicized, it has some freshness of this colloquium. Thank you.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, Advocate Jacob Mdenda. Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, timelines. I could also give the timeline. But let me get, since you'll be supervising the translation, Mr. Clerk, how much time do you think we'll have the first draft in all the languages, and then the speaker should expect the draft? Oh, there's no translation. Okay. 1 minute translation? 1 week, very good. So by next Friday, you should all expect the first draft in your various languages. Then you tell us also how much time you need for feedback, because we don't send emails. So yeah, because sometimes also from your side, some 1 week, by the other Friday, okay, within 7 days when you receive it, there will be a date when you receive. Within 7 days, respond. And then, of course, we would then share any violent responses. If it's all cool and nice, we then proceed to the next stage. But if there will be other objections, but we'll share with all of you that there have been these other views. Otherwise, Mr. Legal Counsel, look, you have done very well. Very, very, very well. It is rare, first of all, for this department to commit self and come and be present. Usually, legal counsel send junior lawyers, not the highest level like this. So we need to clap for you for that one. You have started well. Your department, as they've said, should go to the people. Now, let me give the remarks to close so that we go. I think the issue is in giving my remarks. Why did we meet? That's the main issue. Have we achieved what we met for? To get speakers into one place, some flying from, is it New York or UK? Did you say New York? They said the UK. From the UK, all the inconvenience, UK, Sierra Leone, Accra, look, that level of commitment at your level. It only means we are doing serious business. I think what is important, speakers, is when you are a boss at this level that you are, and probably where I am now, there is the tendency to think that you have seen it all. There's no more need even to listen to other people, even read, even learn. And sure, you wouldn't want to be educated, or some junior person in your country say, Mr. Speaker, say, take your pen and paper. I want to tell you about how to run a parliament. That you wouldn't want, of course. And the only way you want to learn is through what we call experiential learning. That one, until you are 200 years old, experiential learning, that's the permanent learning for leaders. You are leaders. So experiential learning, which is a platform of leadership at your level in similar professions, you need to look for this always. You need experiential learning, which means as peers like this, you are also free. In your country, most of you cannot comment freely about how things are not being done well. But in this platform, at least you can and share ideas. So this platform, speakers, presidents, chairpersons, is very important. So critical importance for us. We need it, probably more than what we've done before. We need this platform so that we have that experiential training. So this has been training of some sort. And definitely you go back a bit better, so that you don't think wherever you are, you think you know. Like the case of the elephants. I know most of you have heard this already, but because it is relevant to this situation, let me go through it. You are aware of the six elephants that were asked to understand what, one elephant but 6 blind people. They were asked to touch the elephant or have a feel of the elephant and describe what an elephant is like. So the 6, one touched the belly, the belly, and say, oh, an elephant is like a wall. The other one touched the tusk. The other one said, no, elephant is like a solid pipe. The other one touched the tail. He said, it's like a rope. The other one touched the trunk and said, it's like a branch of a tree. And the other one, the ear says, like a fan. The same thing. And each one believed in what they had felt. And they would even argue and say, you are wrong. It's like a fan. That is what happens if people don't come to such a forum. You only touch the leg of an elephant and say, no, it's like a pillar. Yet you have not touched the whole elephant. You don't know the other parts of the elephant. So be careful about your arguments, even the decisions that you are making. Because these people, everyone was wrong, of course. The 6 were all right in the first instance, because what they touched was what the reality. But they all were wrong because they don't have a full picture. So I'm saying this fora avoids that syndrome of elephant touch, because then you know that there's the other side that you don't know. And the points that came out here support us very, very well. If you listen, if you remember, and we'll send all these presentations, all of them, I can promise you all receive as parliaments. But sometimes these documents come to the secretariat and not the speaker. And sometimes the secretariat, they keep these documents to themselves. So the speaker may think, oh, those people never sent those documents. So also find out, I think this we can promise by Monday, if you have not received your documents, ask us. You would have received. Maybe by now some have already received. But sometimes they may be to your secretariat. If you go through those documents, I think in summary, as I make my remarks to end this, what comes out very well is that we have parliaments on the continent. And I want to say there's a lot of work to do. You said, people are even questioning independence, that we became independent. It came out here. Say, look, what does it bring? And some political parties actually are being voted out of power. We have cases on this continent where parties have gone out of power because people think, no, but we don't see anything. You have actually said, no, we need to do more. Things are not moving. The Agenda 2063 for the continent, very serious issues. And what our parliaments is, I'm just saying, this is what has come out to create the real work for us. We need to go another step. I think this step of meeting and conferencing and coming up with a communique, it goes fine. That is a tradition we need. But we need to go slightly above and say the next conference should not go back just again blame Speakers Conference. Again talk about the agenda 2063, which we all have heard that it is not performing well. And people don't know it. Very serious issues. Where were the parliaments when in 2013, Agenda 2063 was adopted? 10 years later, even our own MPs in the parliament are not very convinced with that document. Some of you, maybe if you one or two, could have heard those aspirations for the first time. Because I could see a number writing, not number two, they were writing, showing that I think this is new. So where were the parliaments? What did they do in the last 10 years? We all knew there was Agenda 2063. What do we do as national parliament to try and get our people on board? Because the reality is that these experts are designing themselves. They put up a plan, work plan, they implement themselves, and they even come to the meeting like this and tell us how it is, what they've designed themselves is performing. Where on earth? Valuation and the designing are all separate. The implementer cannot be the monitor and the evaluate. These are separate things. But we as parliaments are not questioning this. So I think we have work to do. That's my point. Because almost everything we've shown that it's not up to expectation. Almost everything is not up to expectation. So it means what do we do as parliaments? Because ultimately, you all are educated. Ultimately, so the architecture of governance is such that the executive will run around and implement. Then they brought a parliament, which should then say, are things being done correctly? Is Agenda 2063 really, in terms of milestone? Are we aware as national parliaments, in terms of what are the milestones of Agenda 2063 to achieve what by when? Are we familiar? And are we following and commenting to say, no, I think this was not properly set out. Can we change course here? So after 50 years, then we'll sit and say, oh, that was useless. We would have wasted time and money. So the parliaments have to closely monitor and see, no, this is wrong. Can we sit and review? That's parliament. Can we review? But we are quiet as parliament. And I'm just challenging my elders here that, I don't know, I think as parliaments we need to change also the way we do things. And the next workshop should show a change on all these issues. And I can assure you this idea of meeting after 20 years, 2 years, cannot help Africa for parliament. This forum should meet every year to follow up on all these presentations. And I'm happy the Legal Council also mentioned that to me, to say we need to institutionalize this as part of the parliamentary framework of the continent. So that when we meet like this, the AU should be satisfied that, okay, we have a program, we have instruments, we will bring it to that forum, and we get feedback from this forum. So we should meet every year, not once after whatever, no, every year, and properly structured. Not just have a set of presentations again. No, I can assure you that is not my background in life. It's not my background. I mean, not my professional background. We will see that the next stage will be different. And this idea of after this we disconnect, this forum disconnects at least from PAP, and then we reconnect after 1 year. We need to have a vibrant way of how the forum keeps on sharing information, ideas, commenting, and that project would want to undertake that project. So that maybe after 1 month or 2 months, almost a monthly, we expect a monthly output of some sort from this forum so that we move ahead. So the real thing is that all the presentations and all your questions celebrated nothing. We are simply saying everything is dead. Whether it's Agenda 2063, whether it's the security situation on the continent, any topic, whether it is food security. So we have work to do. So from here, we need to come up also as a follow-up work. Follow-up work, Mr. Clerk and the other clerks. Follow-up work on this regional ECOWAS. Well, how do we follow up on these issues? If they are not performing, can we go and rest for 1 year? No ways. We need to come back quickly and say we should try. And finally, I'm saying this is what we call the safe setting for leaders. This is a safe setting for all of us. We behave slightly differently when we are here than when you are in your parliament. So when you are here, you share. This becomes like a laboratory for speakers. I want to go, it's a laboratory for us as speakers of parliaments, and let's view it as such. Because the fate of each individual country is the fate of our continent. So we cannot say, I'm Sierra Leone, so I go back to Sierra Leone. Your fate, Sierra Leone, is continental. So we need to be integrated. One for all and all for one should be a slogan, as we say, one Africa, one voice. Knowledge transfer was taking since yesterday. We've been sharing experiences, and the network we have created, at least 1 or 2 or 5 who were not quite networked, now we are more networked. But Parliament, if I can use, I'm also now a head of an organ, which is a parliamentary organ. Surely when people are suffering, we should also point at ourselves as heads of, as parliamentary institutions, because constitutions have put a mandate in you to follow up on things that are working or not working. So a parliament can, a speaker, an MP cannot be seated there always drinking whatever coffee. Things are not working in this country. They are not good. What have you done, since you were given the mandate to go and oversight, hear what people want, and go to the government? I know there are risks sometimes politically. If you don't do it properly, they can, even as a speaker, they can move a motion, want to get your read out of you. But Mandela had to spend 27 years in jail in order to be independent, South Africa. So let's go and follow up, and the problems of Africa are ours. The issue that the DRC, the resources are not being utilized, they are not ours. It's a parliamentary issue. If it is a PAP issue, it is this forum which should seek solutions. Let me end here. And thank you for coming and for sitting up to this hour on the second day. Still live, I can see your faces are still live and ready to go, but can I appeal to you that next time we will request for 2 things. 2 days has proved that is not enough. We left out topics like state of corruption on the continent, for example. It's a topic that each time we meet, this issue of corruption, because the one again killing development. The issue of peace and security, and it was mentioned by you people. We actually requested the Commissioner for Peace and Security, Commissioner, what's his name? Bankole. He tried to come. He was in Angola for elections, ended up in Dakar, but he couldn't. But even this morning, he then apologized, said, look, sorry, I couldn't make it. Because peace and security should be a recurrent theme, because the continent has to solve those problems. So we left it out because the presenter could not come. That's why we didn't see it. Otherwise, but if we had put in peace and security, it means this meeting would have ended at 10 p.m. again. So I think we should program next time 3 days and appeal to you that you don't fly out on the day that we finish the work conference. Because by 2 o'clock, we want to go back to your hotel, get prepared, and fly out. Please try not to go back on the day that the conference ends. It's just an appeal. I know you have more power than myself in parliament, but I think let's do it like, because some have left, and I know delegations that said we have to leave by 3 or by 2. I think we are closed now. We have finished. We have finished. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We will, yeah, I see any hand there. Usually when you have closed, you don't want to open again. Yeah, but you seem to maybe have an important issue which you have left out. Sorry?
It's a positive suggestion. We have, I think we have heard attentively to the excellent snapshot of our deliberation, the final communique. And we have, I believe that we have no remark. So if we send it, and someone introduces some other arguments, will make it complex. So please, we consider the final communique is good. We can change only in forms, but not in substance and consistency. Thank you very much.
Is it Morocco? Eh? Morocco is already endorsing. But I had a final statement, one word, one sentence. Please, your parliaments, do not take activity to mean performance. The fact that you sit for 61 days or 100 days per year, don't take it as performance. Those are not results. Sitting doesn't give us results. Those are activities. It's not what you do, but what gets done. That's important. And I close here. I request we stand up for the AU anthem.
Let us all unite and celebrate together. The victor song for our liberation. Let us dedicate ourselves to rise together to defend our liberty and unity. Oh, fils et filles de l'Afrique, chers du soleil, chers du ciel, faisons de l'Afrique la bread de vie. Let us all unite and sing together to uphold the bond that frame our destiny. Let us dedicate ourselves to fight together for lasting peace and justice on earth. Oh, filhos, filhas da África, essência do sol, essência do céu, façamos da África cor da vida. Let us all unite and toil together to give the best we have to Africa. The cradle of mankind, the font of culture, our pride and hope and break of dawn. Ya amna wa balat Afrika, lubu asam shwa kendu sama. Africa shajahatul ayat.
Thank you, bon voyage.